guys, welcome to Chef Grace's place. Today I'm really excited because we're making the filling of one of my favorite tarts. Growing up, I always loved the flavor of pecan pie. To me, it never had enough pecans in it, and I really wasn't a fan of like that gooey egg mixture in it. When I was in pastry school, we used to make this caramel walnut tart, and I thought, this has every texture in it that I wish a pecan pie had in it. So I decided to take that recipe and convert it into this recipe, which I call my pecan pie, which isn't a pie, it is a tart. In our last video, I showed you how to make pâte sucré, which is the tart dough for this tart. I have that tart shell resting in the freezer, ready to go. This is going to be a maple caramel because we're adding maple syrup. It gives a great fall flavor to the pecan tart. It's absolutely delicious. I can't wait to eat this. So the first thing you're going to want to do is get your sugar and your water together. We're making a wet caramel, but you really only need to put in enough water to get the sugar wet. Next, you want to brush down the sides of the pot just to make sure there's no sugar crystals hanging out there. Caramel can crystallize, which is why it's important we don't stir it. Stirring can agitate the sugar crystals and form a chain reaction where the whole pot crystallizes, and it's a pain in the ass to get your pot clean. When that happens, you gotta boil it out with some vinegar water. So to prevent that, we're gonna keep an eye on the sides. If we see any crystals forming, we'll brush them down with water and wait until it starts to get a nice golden caramel. Alright, so when you're cooking with the caramel, always keep an eye on the sides. We're looking pretty good here. I don't see any crystallization forming yet. The bubbles were super rapid because it was evaporating the water. Now we're starting to slow down. So we're going to enter softball stage pretty soon, probably in thread stage. There are different stages of sugar and they all do different things. So thread stage is like a thread. A softball is kind of like hot glue. Hard crack is going to be like for your lollipops. Then caramel stage, which in regular sugar will give you that caramel color, but in like isomalt, which is a fake sugar-free sugar, it'll still be clear. Alright, and you'll notice all pots and pans have hot spots and cold spots. So you're going to notice that part of your pan is going to start turning caramel colored before the other part of your pan. And you really want to like turn your pan. Don't try to stir the sugar in there because then we're going to crystallize, and we don't want that. Alright, we're starting to turn a caramel color over here. And we want to get a pretty deep caramel on this. I know that's surprising since we're going to go into the oven as well, but trust me. Alright, I'm actually going to turn off the flame in a second, and the residual heat is going to keep cooking the caramel to the color I want. So there's an amber color over here. I don't know if you can see it. Like a deep amber, and that's what we're going for. Alright, perfect. Now see, if you didn't stir that, it would just like boil over. Add the rest of my cream. So our caramel is this beautiful caramel color, but it's lumpy on the bottom. So we're just gonna remelt that and add in our maple syrup and our butter and our salt. Alright, so I'm just warming it up on the bottom. Nothing crazy. I'm gonna toss in my butter. Started to bubble already. My maple syrup. and a teaspoon of salt. So I'm going to melt this all together. Some caramelly goodness. You just want to stir it until all the butter is melted, right? I don't feel any like caramel stuck to the bottom, so I know I reheated enough. My flame is off, by the way. If you wanted to make this super quick, you could return it to the stove just to cook the pecans a little bit. Cook them for like 5 minutes. And then put it into an ice bath to cool it down immediately to get it in the tart shell. But what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna throw this in with the pecans and let it come down to room temperature as soon as all my butter's melted in. So I'm just gonna pour this onto my pecans. Beautiful. So once you have the caramel in there, just stir it on up. And you're gonna want this to come to room temperature before you put it into the tart shell. Alright, so I got my frozen tart shell. I got my cool caramel pecans. I put it in a water bath just to speed the process up a bit. Gotta make sure your tart shell is docked. If you haven't seen my video on how to make sucre, check it out. I'm just gonna spoon this in real quick. Now we're gonna fill this all the way to the top. It's not gonna grow or anything, since we don't have any eggs or anything in it. Just the tart shell will poof a little bit. Generally, I'd put this in the refrigerator or the freezer for another 20 minutes so it could all chill. But I don't have that kind of refrigerator space right now, so it's going straight in the oven. It should be okay though. Alright guys, so I've let my tart shell cool down a bit. It's still warm. I went around the edges into the flutes with a paring knife just to separate it out a little bit. With the caramel, the tart could stick to the shell, and we don't want to have it stuck to the shell, and then when we try to unmold it, since it's stuck, it'll break. So we gotta be very careful. Hopefully this doesn't break. Alright, it's still warm. I have some caramel on the base. Now it just fell right off, which is great. Looks amazing. Obviously this is why you don't want it to be too hot, because that would hurt a lot. Now, when you wash your tart shells, you want to make sure you dry them immediately because they can rust. And this is what I call my ugly pie. So this is the leftovers all together. See, it's more of a rustic thing. I just rolled out the sucre and then I folded it in on itself. I actually like this one because, you know, it tastes great. You don't have to worry about it. It looks super homemade. What really elevates this particular pie is putting a drizzle of chocolate on top. The bitterness in the chocolate it really complements the pecan flavor, and it just ties the whole thing together. It's delicious. So I'm gonna melt some chocolate chips in the microwave really quick and then just drizzle on top. You could use a parchment bag if you want to get super fancy, but I'll probably just use a spoon. So for the ugly guy, you could leave them in there or you can unmold them. And then for the tart, we just want to make sure we take it off the metal. If you're going to transport this, put a cake board underneath. You just want to go around all the way, just like we did in between the flutes, to make sure it's not stuck before you push it. So once you get it all the way around, should be able to slip out that little ring. So I got a chocolate. Always do the ugly one first, right? So I'm gonna go from a high. It's nice and thin, you see? So when we go high, we'll get thin, whoop, little strands. I like to have a nice, thin, even coating, so this way every bite has just a little hint of chocolate in it. This is my favorite version of pecan pie. Hope you try to make it. It's way better than traditional. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit the like button. Happy Thanksgiving, and I'll see you next time at Chef Grace's place.